Welcome to another episode of Courageous Conversations Live. I'm your host, Pierre Quinn, and here on Courageous Conversations, we're leveraging the stories of leaders, of creatives, of entrepreneurs to help you live and lead with greater courage. I'm excited about this conversation that's happening today because joining me on this episode of Courageous Conversations Live is Dr. Roger Hall. Roger, thanks for being my guest today.
I'm grateful to be here today, Pierre.
I know we're going to have a fantastic conversation. And for those of you who have just stopped the scroll and you're trying to figure out what's going on here, I'm going to be talking to Dr. Roger Hall about emotionally intelligent leaders. So here's what we need you to do. Hop in that comment section. We love to do shout outs here on Courageous Conversations Live. I know you're going to have a question for Dr. Hall or a comment, throw that in as well. And we invite you to share, to be friendly and share. Hit that share button. There will be some leaders in your network that need to listen in on this conversation as well. Okay, Dr. Hall, as we get started, give us some context. Give us that, elevator pitch commercial version of who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so I am a business psychologist. I'm in the subdiscipline in psychology called consulting psychology, and I do peak performance work with entrepreneurs, much like a sports psychologist works with peak performance athletes to help them improve their performance by working on their head game. I do the same thing with entrepreneurs, business owners, and sales professionals.
So what led you down this road as a profession? Was this something on your mind growing up that you said you wanted to get into psychology and
No, it was a series of bad decisions. I was a communication undergrad, and I went and talked to one of my professors and said, how do I do this, learn about attitude change and help healthy people function better? And he said, get a PhD in psychology. And I said, well, I'm almost done with my undergrad. Why would I do that? And he says, because if you want to do what you want to do, you have to get a PhD in psychology. So I walked over to the psychology department and enrolled and got a double major. And 6 years later, got a PhD.
So talk to me about that journey of doctoral work. There's this maybe perception out there in order to pursue doctoral work. You have to be super amazing. You have to be super brilliant. It's only for a select few elite persons to enter into that segment of the world. How was your doctoral experience? And what's your recommendation for anyone who may be considering doctoral work?
I would say, it is hard. I think one of the things most people don't think about when they look at a doctoral program in psychology is there's a tremendous amount of math. And so most people don't think that, I took almost a year of undergraduate statistics and a year of graduate level statistics. So math is really important. So you may not think that you need that, but in terms of understanding the science behind what we do, you really have to understand research design, research methodology, and be able to understand the math. So it doesn't make sense, but frankly, I use statistics every day. I don't use a lot of my other courses from graduate school every day, but I do use the statistics every day.
So speaking of understanding the science, there's a topic that you're really excited to talk about. And I know on our upcoming podcast episode, we talked about what it takes to be really an effective leader. But on that podcast episode, we didn't get a chance to talk about this whole idea of neurobiology and emotional intelligence and what happens with leaders who seek to be more emotionally intelligent. Can you begin to break that down for us? I know some people are, when I said neurobiology, there's a group of people who are watching this that perked up. When I said emotional intelligence, there's a group of people who perked up. How can we kind of meet in the middle?
And then there's that group of people who said, okay, I don't want any of this. So back in the 1980s and 1990s, a gentleman named Daniel Goleman kind of coined the term emotional intelligence. And what he said is there are 5 pieces of being an emotionally intelligent person. One was initiative or internal motivation. And one of my clients calls that go juice. He says, I only want to hire people who have go juice. And those are the people who get up every morning and get after it. They have an achievement drive. And the next 4 kind of hang together. It's self-awareness. It's knowing what's happening in your thoughts and in your emotions. It's self-control. It's then managing what's in your thoughts and your emotions. So you can't do the second unless you've figured out the first.
Yeah.
You can't control your temper unless you know you're angry. And then those are all internal. And so many leaders neglect that first part. And that's a foundational element. You have to be self-aware and self-managing before then you can be influential on other people. So the next one is empathy, which is how do I monitor what's happening in the emotions of others? And then the last one, Goleman calls resonance, which is how do I then manage the emotions of others? And emotionally intelligent leaders are great because they join people in their emotions. They don't deny their emotions. So if they're talking to somebody who's angry, they don't go, "Don't be angry," because the worst thing you can say to a person who's angry is "calm down," right? So what they do is they join them in those emotions. They join them there, and then they have these skills to draw them out. And that resonance piece is really a master skill. This is social facility, social poise, and we know those people. We also know the people who always say the wrong thing at the wrong time. Those are dissonant leaders, and we've all had a dissonant leader in our life. But we also remember those resonant leaders who made us feel good and then helped us to achieve better goals and feel better.
There's a common phrase that we use it all the time, just about every place, when someone asks, "Hey, how are you doing?" And sometimes it comes, "I'm good, I'm fine." I'm thinking about, and if I'm off here, kind of steer me in the right direction. What can be the challenge for that, or the danger of a leader whose consistent response is "I'm good" or "I'm fine"? Is it that that's what I should just share in front of my people, and then when I'm in my private group, I let myself out? Or how do I wrestle with, because it seems commonplace, if someone asks you how you're doing, you better say "I'm good" or you better say "I'm fine"?
Well, I think for a leader, there's some adaptive reason to not tell everything. I think it's important for leaders to be honest, but they don't have to tell everything. And so what they always have to remember is what I'm going to say or how I'm going to act going to affect my people for the good or for the ill? I worked with a president of a company, and he said, "Roger, I don't care if the distribution center is burning to the ground. I never walk fast through the office. Because if I walk in through the front door and I'm walking fast, reception calls accounting, accounting calls marketing, marketing calls sales, sales calls operations. And before I'm even in my office, which is on the second floor, 250 people in my building are freaking out because I'm walking fast."
Wow.
And so we as leaders, in terms of the neurobiology, human beings are wired to look at the faces and the behavior of people, and we make attributions, explanations of how they're feeling. And that's because humans and primates have these neurons called mirror neurons. So Pierre, do you have kids?
Yeah, I had 2 girls.
Okay, so when they were little babies, right? Did you make that little surprise face at them when they're really, really tiny and you went, "Oh," and did they do that back?
Absolutely.
Okay, now, did you ever think about that? Like, how do these babies know to imitate my face? Well, because we're wired that way. We human beings and primates and dogs too. Dogs like to look at our faces as well, but that's a whole separate topic. We look at other people's faces and we read their emotions. I mean, it's amazing if you think about it, Pierre, that we're wired to look at other people, imitate, and then we start coming up with a theory of what's happening in their head. And sometimes we're right, sometimes we're wrong, and that makes for problems. But we're built for that. So we watch the behavior of others and it infects us. So there was a study done in the 1970s where they gave students either this new vitamin called Suproxen or saline. They injected them with this. And saline doesn't do anything to you. And they told the students, and the students didn't know, whether they were getting Suproxen or if they were getting saline. And they said, boy, this Suproxen is really expensive. So we have to share a waiting room with another experiment. Sorry. And so they sent the students into the waiting room. Now, here's the other part of the experimental manipulation. Half got Suproxen, half got saline. And then half of them went into a room where there were two people arguing. There was a woman in the corner crying, and everyone else is kind of huddled. And then the other group went into a room where there was a guy telling jokes. They're bouncing a beach ball around. They're crumpling up newspaper and shooting baskets. And they had to wait there for a half an hour. After the half hour is over, they asked all of the students, how does Suproxen make you feel? Well, the ones who got salines, if they were in the angry waiting room, they said, not real good, but I don't like that experiment. I don't want to do that one.
Yeah.
And if they had saline and they were in the happy group, they said, I don't know, but I want to do that experiment because those people look like they're having fun. Here's the important part. When the people got Suproxen, it wasn't Suproxen. It was norepinephrine. It was our body's adrenaline. And so they hopped up with essentially the body's version of amphetamine. And when they were in the angry group, they said, I don't think you should put this Suproxen on the market because, it makes me want to rip somebody's head off. Wow. And when they were in the happy group, they were like, this stuff is awesome. Now, here's what happened is people who had adrenaline in their system interpreted what was happening in their body by what? What was happening in their body? No, by what was happening around them.
Wow.
So if you have people in your workplace who are hopped up on adrenaline, you can change how they feel because they'll interpret what's happening in their bodily state by your behavior. So emotions, Pierre, are contagious.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're saying it matters as a leader how I show up to the Zoom call.
Absolutely.
The look on my face and my disposition, that really matters.
I mean, as a leader, you should always be thinking, my emotion infects all of my people for good or for ill.
Wow. So have there been, I'm sure there are, but can you speak to maybe even a brain scan or a piece of research that shows a leader's progression after being intentional about making changes and becoming more emotionally aware or intelligent across the board?
Well, let me back up on another brain scan thing. And this it is a little bit, it's a lot of bit gross experiment. And they keep doing these experiments. And I just got one in a new journal. But they take a group of people and they make them work out and they get really sweaty. And then they make them lift their arms and they swab their underarms with pieces of fabric. It's already gross. It's only getting grosser, Pierre. Then they take that same group of people and they have them watch a really scary movie. And in the middle of the scary part, they have them raise their hands, they swab their underarms with pieces of fabric.
Wow.
So far, nobody likes this experiment, but wait, it gets worse. Then they take another group of people and they put them in what's called an fMRI machine, functional magnetic resonance imaging machine. Okay. So if you've ever had an MRI, you go in the tube and it can take a three-dimensional, picture of what's happening in your brain or in your body. Mm-hmm. The F part is the addition of what's called positron emission tomography, which is they have you huff radioactive glucose so you can see in real time what parts of your brain are active. So in the parts of the brain that they're looking at are these two structures called the amygdala. They're deep in the brain. And they're kind of the starting point. They're certainly not the finish point, but they're kind of the starting point of anger and fear. Mm-hmm. And so when those things are active, we know somebody's experiencing fear or anger. So they slide people in the tube, and as they're sliding in the tube, they say, hey, we're going to put this piece of fabric over your nose and mouth. Yeah, it's totally gross, right? Yeah, I warned you, right?
Yeah.
So they put the exercise sweat over their nose and mouth, slide them in the tube. What happens to their amygdala? Nothing. Then they take the fear sweat and put it over people's nose and mouth, slide them in the tube. What happens? The amygdala light up. Wow. In other words, we smell fear.
Wow.
And so we say dogs smell fear. Humans smell fear. We smell it. And so you can put all the perfume or cologne on that you want, but it's coming off of you and you are infecting the people around you. Here's why I talk about self-awareness and self-control being so important. Mm-hmm. Because whether you like it or not, human beings biologically infect other people with our emotions. So if you haven't monitored where you are emotionally and you haven't managed it, you're going to give it to other people.
Listen, I don't know if you're watching live or either replay of this. When you stopped the scroll and decided to listen, if you were prepared for what you heard today, I mean, just mind blowing the concepts of literally being able to smell fear. So let's talk about practical first steps using some of the models that you talked about before, because there's some leaders who are watching this and they're like, oh, I need to get a better handle on this, Roger. What can I do? What's a practical first step, not even deep end of the pool, like a practical level set that leaders should consider in their efforts to become more emotionally intelligent?
This is great. You have to start with self-awareness. I mean, that's the basic building block. And if you don't know how you're feeling or what you're thinking, then you're always going to be behind the curve. So that's the basic building block. So self-awareness, self-control, empathy, resonance. That's kind of the sequence. So the first building block for leaders is I encourage them to do a thought monitoring exercise. And so this is everybody's got the equipment, right? It's not hard, which is you take your smartphone and you set an alarm on the top of the hour, once an hour, for 10 hours every day for a week. So from 7 in the morning to 5 at night, 8 in the morning to 6, I don't care, but 10 times a day. Mm-hmm. And when the alarm goes off, I want you to take a little pad of paper. They're 99 cents at the office supply store. I mean, you can probably figure out how to swing that. And write down what's on the top of your head at that time. Now, this is super important because we all have this stream of consciousness going through our head all day long. And very few of us ever stick a ladle in to sample what's in our stream of consciousness. And if we did, we'd find out it's full of trash. So my job is to take out the head trash. But people have to know it's in there first. And in my business, we call it metacognition. It's the ability to think about your thinking. And most of us never do that. We just skip along in life. and never think about what we're thinking. So if you do this process, this thought monitoring, at the end of that week, you'll have 70 observations of what's in your stream of consciousness. And at the end of that, then every time somebody's brought one of these lists to me, I've almost always found a theme: excessive anger, excessive guilt, excessive anxiety. One of the things I see a lot is urgency, which is a kind of anxiety. Got to get there, got to do this, got to busy. That's a kind of anxiety. And so we see this overriding theme. The second part is thought stopping. Once you've had 70 observations, you're pretty good at looking at what's in your stream of consciousness. That's the most important skill. Then the next part is easy: stopping. When you have this unproductive thought, you go, oh, there's that stress thought, or there's that anger thought, or there's that guilt thought. Okay, that's no good. That's not going to take me where I want. And then the last part is thought replacement. Is how do you replace that unproductive thought with a more productive thought? And that you may need some help with: a trusted advisor, a friend, a family member who can help you recognize how to replace the head trash with something good.
Roger, you have a book out. You do work with high performance executives, with small teams. And you have this, and we didn't talk about it, but it's in the description box for this live conversation, this one trick. And you introduce part of it in the advice, the practical advice you gave us. At this point in our conversation, I got to ask you, man, you have to, Dr. Hall, you got to plug everything. You got to plug your book.
Well, thank you.
You
so
plug.
I have a book. Actually, I've got a couple books, but I got this book, Staying Happy, Being Productive, the Big 10 Things Successful People Do. You can find that either at my website, drrogerhall.com, drrogerhall.com. You can also find it at the website, stayinghappybeingproductive.com. And then I've got an online course called Freak Out Course. So go to freakoutcourse.com and you can find that as well. And it's a 4-session course with about 10 hours of content on how to stop from freaking out.
In terms of who should click on your LinkedIn profile, maybe they have some questions about coaching or therapy as a leader, who should reach out to you? Who should go to that website, hit that contact page, or send you?
I love to work with entrepreneurs and small business owners. I love to work with sales professionals who are really looking to improve their game. I don't do therapy, which is the remediation of psychological problems. My job is to help people who are doing well do better. It's really peak performance work. So if you're an entrepreneur, a business owner, a sales professional who is looking to improve that level of performance, I'd love to chat with you.
I want to thank you in advance, Dr. Hall. I know people are going to go to the website. They're going to get the book. They're going to send you a message on LinkedIn. There's going to be some amazing things that happen as you support people who are doing well and doing better. And I want to thank you for hanging out on Courageous Conversations today and bringing some much needed perspective and insight to the conversation of leadership and emotionally intelligent leadership.
Hey, Pierre, I am so grateful to be here. Thanks for inviting me, and it's great to chat with you today.
We'll talk soon, okay?
All right, very good.